Okay, so this segment we'll be picking up the story that we mentioned last time, which is to do with treatment as prevention. This is the new idea in HIV circles now, is treatment as prevention, because there was published in May of this year the results of a longitudinal study which showed conclusively, beyond doubt, that AIDS can be largely eliminated by keeping people on
treatment and keeping them on treatment early.
And it tells us a lot. The very first thing that this tells us is that people need to be tested, and if they're positive they need to be on meds. And what this does is that when everyone is tested and on meds, it lowers the community viral load sufficiently that it actually eradicates the epidemic.
Within certain communities.
Anyway, the thing that concerns me about it is the astonishing silence in the Queensland gay media about this story. And the first thing that happened after the results of this this trial were announced in May.
The IPREC study?
We got from Q News two very brief columns, one by Paul Martin and one by Fiona Bishop, and neither of them mention the study itself, and neither of these columns mention the World Health Organization approval of the study. Paul Martin talks about whether we should test or not, says that it's a good idea. Fiona Bishop talks about going on meds. So those are the 2 points: getting tested, going on meds. I think it was kind of an insult for the columns not to mention the study. It sort of buries the importance of it. It doesn't mention the importance of it getting the backing of the World Health Organization, and neither of them actually mention the sort of size of this information, that it's really big news. They play it down significantly. Nothing else happens in the media for a while. Queensland Pride magazine, I think I showed you this cover the other day, and Queensland Pride magazine, they haven't run a story on it, although Queensland Pride magazine do have a supplement which they include. It's a national supplement. They include it, the positive living, and we showed you that headline, and so that's the only statement we get in Queensland about treatment as prevention. When it does finally turn up, again it's Fiona Bishop, she mentions it, and here she kind of like calls it, or not kind of like, she says it's a media catch cry. And
finish with that one?
Yeah, finish with that one. So here we go, Fiona Bishop again. The latest catch cry from the media is treatment as prevention. Mm-hmm. Again, she never mentions the size of the importance of this, and then very quickly she dismisses it.
With caveats.
With caveats, and there's a reason for them doing this. It's because public health is really, really conscious that they've got the brakes on the gay community, on the POS men, by keeping them under sort of some degree of scrutiny, which is almost a kind of criminal scrutiny, which is supposed to act as a deterrent and encourage people to have safe sex all the time and use condoms. The argument from the study is that when you're on treatment, you're actually not particularly infectious. Less than 4% likely to transmit HIV if you've got undetectable viral loads and you haven't got any STIs. So that's really, really good news. POS men, POS people, really need to know that, because at the moment they've been ridden really, really hard in terms of the kind of scrutiny that's placed on them. And the entire responsibility for transmission, legally, is on the shoulders of people who are positive. However, the other part of the research is saying that, in fact, if you bring the community viral load down, is that it will compensate, it will more than compensate for the rise in unprotected sex which occurs.
If you look at the Ralston study, which I'll put the credits up here, it was pretty conclusive that it was less than 10% of the men who have unsafe sex within the community. And there's also the argument that gay men are also very well informed about HIV and overall do practice safe sex most of the time.
It does bring us around to another point. When the Swiss report was released, they released it, and this is in 2008. One of the 4 or 5 main bullet points that they brought out was that that the criminal scrutiny of people with HIV should be let go of. Because people who are on treatments aren't in fact as infectious as we've been thinking. The criminal scrutiny stands as a disincentive to men who haven't been tested to get tested, as long as people don't know about their status. As Gavin just said, they're absolved from any responsibility.
And it's interesting that the law is implicit, that we've got these specific laws across Australia, and we've got certain prosecutions that have happened around transmission of HIV, although there's not the similar laws for Hep C or other viral infections,
or herpes,
or N1H1, or and one might argue is that it's homophobic. It's implicitly implying that all gay sex is unhealthy sex and it needs to be regulated.
It creates a minefield for gay men and for gay men to operate in, and it's a massive disincentive for people to test, which undermines, it's counterproductive, it undermines the health promotion. It's got to stop, basically, although it doesn't look like it will, because, I mean, just this week we get another prosecution. Just this week. There's been an upsurge in prosecutions. They didn't used to happen. They're becoming more prevalent, and it probably makes for some degree of personal satisfaction that it's possible to do that and you get a result and someone goes to jail. But the bigger picture is that it drives
the sex underground
and makes it harder to come by.
No, it makes it also very difficult. I just want to add, makes it very difficult for health promoters to seek those men, because it drives them underground and makes them more invisible, and it makes it very difficult for health promoters to reach out to those ever-changing and discrete communities.
So there's a real mess, is what we're saying, and one of the ways out of the mess is to discuss it. And one of the things we're being denied, at least here in Queensland by the press, is the ability to discuss it.
It's interesting that Q News very rarely run stories about HIV from an editorial point of view. They must think that we're bored with it, or it's depressing in some way. I would argue it's just as important. As we're not allowed to have these conversations, and certainly within sex clubs, you're lucky to have any conversation at all, apart from are you a top or are you a bottom. There's no discourse. That people will continue to switch off. People will continue to bury their head in the sand and blunt the message and consider that it's not them at risk, it's somebody else.
I think you're right about the top-down stuff, because that is what is happening with treatment and prevention. We're here in Queensland, we are being told what to think about it. In fact, we're actually being told not to think about it. We do need to think about it. It's worth looking it up. But the trial I'm talking about was the HPTN052 trial.
And the other one is the IPREX study.
Yeah. If you want this information about treatment as prevention, one of the best places is to go online and look up. You can Google it. It's called AIDS Map. AIDS Map. And it's got the most comprehensive data. So if you think you're a monster, if you think you're guilty of a whole lot of things that the media have kind of like been suggesting you are, you're probably not. Make us think about it.
Oh, they're not going to do that.
They're not.
No.
No.
No, they just go down the Wickham.
Yep.
Well, no, they might go with the Sporties.
Who is going to put the head on the block?
public floggings, I say.
Yeah.